Coach in Unrivaled finally decided to play Lexi Hull. Lexi Hull actually saw the floor. And what happened?
The Rose Basketball Club, after struggling through their first 2 games with 0 wins, finally made a significant change that shifted the team's fortunes. Lexi Hull, who had barely seen any minutes in those first 2 games, was given a chance to prove herself, and she didn't just meet expectations, she exceeded them. In her first extended playtime, Hull exploded onto the scene with a phenomenal 19-point performance, showcasing her ability to shine when given the right opportunity. Let's paint the picture. Imagine you're Lexi Hull, a player known for her shooting and defensive prowess, but in the first 2 games of the season, you've played a total of just 8 minutes. Your team is struggling, you're watching from the sidelines, and players like Angel Reese are hogging the spotlight, forcing their way into the stats with double-doubles. Frustrating, right? But then, out of nowhere, you're called to step up, and you make the most of it. Hull came in and delivered a performance that helped lead the Rose to their first win of the season, going 8 for 11 from the field and contributing 3 assists and 3 rebounds. This wasn't just a redemption story, it was a tale of patience, perseverance, and strategy. Lexi Hull showed the basketball world what happens when a coach decides to prioritize talent over individual stat padding. Hull's success didn't just help the team get a win, it also highlighted why her game might be the key to unlocking the Rose Basketball Club's potential. Before diving into the game-changing performance, let's take a quick look at the context. In those first 2 games of the season, Hull's playtime was minimal. Despite being a proven 3-point shooter with excellent defensive skills, she was largely confined to the bench. Why was this the case? In truth, the coach's system didn't suit her style of play. While Hull was capable of making an impact, the offensive schemes being run didn't utilize her strengths. The Rose were caught in a sluggish, pick-and-roll heavy system that didn't make the most of Hull's off-ball movement or defensive abilities. It wasn't a matter of Hull's performance, it was simply a poor fit with the coach's system. When Hull barely played in those first 2 games, the Rose suffered. They lost both games and found themselves in an offensive rut. The team had some players scoring in double digits, but the offense as a whole looked disjointed, and the defense was riddled with holes. Fans began questioning why such a talented player wasn't on the floor. Even with her limited playing time, Hull's lockdown defense had been noticeable when she did get a chance to play. It was clear to everyone watching that she deserved more minutes, but for some reason, the coach couldn't see it until, of course, the 3rd game. The Rose were desperate for a win, and that's when the coach finally made the decision to shake things up. Instead of continuing with the same slow, pick-and-roll heavy approach, the team shifted to a faster, more dynamic offensive system that relied on quick cuts and fast movement. And with that shift in strategy, Hull finally got the green light to play extended minutes. The result? A game-changing 19-point performance in just 10 minutes. This wasn't a fluke, it was a statement game. Hull's efficiency was off the charts, with 14 of those 19 points coming from driving to the basket and showing off an aggression that had been missing in her game previously. But what really stood out was the way Hull's game meshed with the new offensive strategy. Her ability to make sharp cuts, move off the ball, and play with hustle were exactly what the Rose needed. She wasn't just hitting threes, although she did contribute a couple of those too, she was driving to the hoop with confidence, finishing with a left-handed layup after a solid screen from her teammates. Her versatility as both a shooter and a defender made her an essential asset on the court. It's also worth noting that Hull wasn't the only player to step up in this game. Kalia Copper and Azure Stevens were also vital in the Rose's win, and their strong play allowed Hull to thrive. This wasn't a game where Hull was simply the beneficiary of a broken system. It was a collective effort that saw all the right pieces come together. Still, it was Hull's breakout performance that stole the show, particularly when compared to Angel Reese's underwhelming performance. Reese, who had been the supposed star of the team in those first 2 games, struggled mightily. With just 4 points in 8 minutes and a slew of turnovers and fouls, Reese's performance was a stark contrast to Hull's. While Reese had been a focal point of the offense in those first games, her style of play simply wasn't working in the fast-paced 3-on-3 format of Unrivaled. This brings up a key point. What was going wrong with Angel Reese? On paper, she had been putting up double-doubles in the first 2 games. However, those stats didn't translate into wins, and her game wasn't suited to the speed and style of play required in 3-on-3 basketball. Unlike Hull, Reese's game was slower and more reliant on pick-and-roll actions, which weren't as effective in a format that demands quick decision-making, fast breaks, and cutting to the basket. Her inability to finish at the rim and missed easy shots further exposed the flaws in her game. When the coach decided to bench Reese in favor of Hull, it became clear that Hull's style of play was more suited to the team's needs. And that's where the biggest question of all lies. Why was Lexi Hull benched in the first place? After all, she was a proven three-point shooter and an elite defender. Why was she relegated to the sidelines while players like Reese and Chelsea Gray dominated the ball? The answer lies in the coach's decision to focus on making Reese the center of the offense. The coach was hoping that Reese's individual stats would lead the team to success, but that approach simply didn't work. The Rose were stuck in a slow, plodding offense, relying too much on individual plays rather than team-oriented movement. It wasn't until the 3rd game that the coach adjusted the system and Hull was finally given the opportunity to shine. The performance against the Mist Basketball Club wasn't just a personal victory for Hull, it was a turning point for the Rose Basketball Club. For the first time all season, the team found a rhythm, and the new offensive strategy began to click. With Hull leading the charge, the Rose finally got their first win. But moving forward, the big question remains, will the coach continue to prioritize Hull's play style, or will we see a return to the old system that nearly cost them the game? If the Rose are smart, they'll recognize that Hull isn't just a role player, she's a game changer. Her ability to shoot from beyond the arc, her lockdown defense, and her experience in 3-on-3 basketball make her an invaluable asset to the team. But more importantly, her performance against the Mist has shown that she can thrive when given the right opportunity. If the Rose continue to play to her strengths, there's no telling how far they can go. For Hull, this could be the start of something big. She has already proven that she's capable of stepping up when called upon, and with more consistent minutes, she could become one of the most dangerous players in Unrivaled. But it all comes down to whether the coach is willing to adjust and make the most of Hull's skill set. If the Rose can find a way to integrate Hull's strengths into their offense, they could become a team to watch in the coming weeks. As for Angel Reese, her future with the Rose is now in question. If her style of play continues to clash with the team's needs, it may be time for the coach to reassess her role on the team. As fans and commentators have pointed out, Reese's stat padding didn't translate into team success, and her performance against the Mist only highlighted the flaws in her game. Moving forward, the Rose may need to make some tough decisions about how to structure their offense and who should be the focal point. In conclusion, Lexi Hull's breakout performance against the Mist Basketball Club was a much-needed win for the Rose Basketball Club. It wasn't just a victory for Hull, it was a victory for the team, showing that when the right players are given the right opportunities, success can follow. The question now is whether the Rose can continue to build on this momentum and make the most of Hull's skills. The potential is there, but it all depends on the decisions made by the coach. Will the coach continue to make the same mistakes, or will they adjust to play to Hull's strengths? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, Lexi Hull's time to shine has arrived.